Welcome back for your year-end helping of oysters, clams, and cockles presented by Bolen Media. I am Ross Bolen here with Barrett Dudley to share our highly anticipated, world-renowned, universally respected, inarguably perfect top 10 TV shows of 2024 that we watched lists.
Correct. Many people are saying all of that you just said.
Yes.
They're in my DMs, you know?
Yep.
Just... When is it? When are you dropping it?
Yeah,
give us the top 10. Give it to us now. We need it.
The hottest critics in the world, they wait for us to drop our lists so they can judge theirs against it and make sure they did okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how it goes.
Right. Yeah. Great day to be talking about it. You know, it's going to be almost 90 degrees here today in Austin, Texas, in beautiful, sunny Austin, Texas.
Yeah, which I don't, honestly, it's not the heat that I mind. It's that it's a 30-degree change in temperature from morning to afternoon.
That's true. That's true.
The annoying
thing. It'll be doing that, and then we might be polar vortexing next week. So, you know.
See, I don't even know what that means, but I know it's not good.
We got it all. We got it all here.
Polar vortex.
Including top 10 lists.
Yeah.
So.
By the way, I should note, you don't have to be worried about spoilers today.
That's correct.
You don't have to have seen all this. We're not going to break down the plot of these shows. We're just going to give you why we loved them, why they've claimed the spot they've claimed. How many years have we done this now, Barrett? Like 4 years
like
running?
3 or 4, yeah.
I think?
Yeah. That sounds about right.
And
we do one? I know, you know what? Because we did one, we may have skipped a year it's somewhere in the pandemic. Because I think we did this in 2019. I think we did 1 year. I have the recollection of being at the South Congress studio doing one.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I want to say we've done this.
Maybe five. Maybe
Maybe
times.
this is the fifth?
Maybe
I don't
4 or
know.
5 times. Yeah.
Several. We've done several. Before we start, what parameters do you use to determine your top 10 TV shows of the year?
So I don't include any reality.
No reality.
No reality TV. And I only include TV shows that came out in 2024.
Right. Yeah, that's a hard rule.
Right. So I'm not, just because I watched, The Crown season 6, like that came out last year.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
So it's not eligible to be on my list this year.
Right.
Now, there's some finagling that may eventually have to be done because it seems like more and more TV shows are getting dropped in December. Like, I guess technically Squid Game would be on a list this year.
Right.
But you would have had to binge it in 4 days or whatever.
Yeah,
to get it on here.
The way I've handled that situation, honorable mentions.
Okay. All right.
So because Squid Game season 2, like I think I'm 4 deep.
Okay.
But it can't be in my top 10 because I don't know. What if the last 3 suck?
Right.
So I can only judge what I've got. So those ones slot into the honorable mentions. I did that with a couple other shows as well.
Yeah, and then there's like a show that I really want to watch on Showtime / Paramount is this new spy show called The Agency, which we've talked about a little bit, and it's going to finish in 2025. So like, where's that one gonna?
See, I think that makes it. If it finishes in 2025, I think you can fairly put it on your 2025 list.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at too. Now, to piggyback off something that you just said, I do have 2 shows on my list, which I have not yet completed this season.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did that last year,
and I did that last year too. But
if you've got enough confidence to place it, that's enough for me.
But then, as far as my ranking system goes, I'm taking everything into account, both from like the critical side, but also like sheer enjoyment as well. Personal taste and enjoyment. Yes, and I try to marry those two. Generally I don't just put like the thing that I most wanted to just sit down and cuddle up with as my number one, because that's not what we're doing here.
Nah.
But you'll definitely see some of those shows on my list.
Got to get a little snobby with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We're professionals.
That's right.
We're pros, dude. Mine is. I mean, it's a similar. I think writing / storytelling is probably the most important factor for me. But casting / performances, and then directing / production all matters. But the thing that really ends up factoring in the heaviest is like, is it gripping? Did it make me think while also keeping me entertained and locked in? And then, marrying all that into one big happy matrimony situation.
I feel like we should just get out in front of one show in particular. We have a glaring blind spot with Industry, which I feel quite positive would probably have been in both of our top fives. It's a show that seems right up our alley.
Yeah.
And I do think it's probably a great pod show. And so whenever, I expect we'll be ready for season 4 when it inevitably drops. But you won't see Industry here, which I think is probably the one that is most unanimously appearing on these types of lists.
That we are both completely in the dark on.
Rarely
happens, but somehow it did with Industry.
And then I'll also mention Ripley on Netflix, which I didn't get to, but is supposed to be absolutely fabulous. And
made a lot of people's lists. Yep.
I think we'd both like. And then I started Say Nothing, but I've only watched one episode. It seems amazing, but I did not get far enough to have it in consideration for my list.
And a big part of what we're trying to do here, outside of struck our own egos for judgment, is I love reading other people's lists because it gives me an idea of, like, if I respect this person and their opinion, like, oh, I missed this show, I can add that to my list of things to watch. Yeah. That's what we're trying to accomplish here.
Totally.
Show love to the things that Most Entertained does this year, so that if perhaps you did not watch one of these shows or hadn't even heard of it, you can put it on your to-do list.
Yeah.
And on that note, you want to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, 10-1,
10
backwards,
to 1.
right?
Yeah.
Why don't you do the honors? Hit me with your number 10.
Okay, my number 10. I watched episode 4 of this TV show just last night.
How many are there? How many episodes are there?
I think there are 8.
Okay.
Yeah. That's Taylor Sheridan's Landman.
Oh my God. Landman making the top 10.
Landman in the top 10. I switched it around a little bit. I had this a little bit higher at one point. I watched episode 4 and I said, I can't put this any higher than 10.
You felt shame. Yeah.
It is decidedly like nobody can claim that this is like great TV writing, but it is electrifying and thrilling and kind of unhinged, and features the Billy Bob Thornton performance that I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for.
Yeah.
It took all the things that I liked about that first season of Yellowstone and added some things that were like missing from Yellowstone. This show is funny. Billy Bob Thornton's character is funny.
It's very funny if you watch it from the angle of, like, the unintentional humor.
Yes.
Like the lines that are like some of the lines that are delivered. I think some people watching don't get how funny those lines are. I'm laughing my ass off.
It's got the drama. Somebody is like nearly getting killed on an oil rig pretty much every episode. And don't even get me started on 48-year-old Allie Larder just coming in to chew up every single scene she's in. Just an
and Pop and
Top, just an unbelievable performance from her. And I've never like a Taylor Sheridan show has not sucked me in like this one does.
And I think part of it is the setting and the familiarity. Like, we know Texas.
So that's a very important note. And I was describing this show to our friend Dylan over at Washed just this past weekend, and he and I was like telling him like exactly that. I was like, there's so many tie-ins that are going to be relative because landmen, dudes that live in Midland, how big of a deal like Permian Basin Texas high school football is. Like, like all these, like, we have such kind of touch points that are very relative to our lives, or that we know kind of something about personally.
Yeah.
That definitely elevates this show for me as well.
Yeah, and Barrett and I both being born and raised in Houston, Texas, which is a huge oil and gas city,
yes.
doesn't necessarily didn't really give us everything he's speaking to right now. I don't think we got all these other pieces until we went to college.
That's correct.
Like when you were at UT, I was at Texas State. That's when I met a lot of dudes from Midland, West Texas, East Texas, dudes that it's like when I met them freshman year, we're like, yeah, I'm going to be a landman.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what that means. What the fuck? What is a landman?
Spoiler alert, it doesn't actually mean what Tommy Norris is doing on this show. Mostly it's sitting in like a city hall, like combing through papers on mineral rights.
Right, yeah. A lot of mineral rights
from what
involved.
I understand. There's a lot less fixing going on. But yeah.
Yeah, this is the most exciting possible version of it that the show is like presenting you with.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, so because of all that, I think it adds another layer for us being Texans. watching this sort of like representation of this huge industry in our state. And I agree with you, man. Like nobody's going to argue it's great writing or great storytelling. Also, nobody's going to argue it's not wildly entertaining.
That's right.
It just is. It just is. My number 10 is What We Do in the Shadows final season 6.
Okay. I've got this higher.
I had to get a comedy in for one. I always have a hard time with this. I love comedy, but I always end up weighing prestige TV a lot more heavily on my top 10 list. I thought they did a great job closing out the series. As I've said in past weeks, I thought they took a creative swing at the final episode, did some things that, made it stand out and tried to wrap it up in a way that was satisfying for those of us who have been along for the ride the whole time. Barrett and I noted that a couple of the more recent seasons were not great. They had kind of lost their fastball. I thought they completely regained that with season 6 and did the show justice and sort of took it back to its roots. And I loved this thing, man. As I've said before, and when I'm throwing on some random comedy to have in the background of my life and sort of be able to half watch while I do chores or whatever, I'm not going with The Office. I'm not going with Seinfeld anymore because I've done that too many times. This is mine. This is What We Do in the Shadows is mine, and I loved this show, and it's my number 10.
So this is actually the other season that I've not finished yet. I'm through 6 episodes. I just watched Laszlo's Father, and I think you've had this on a top 10 before, but I don't think I've ever had it because I don't think we were doing the top 10s for those first few seasons, or it may have been that you and I caught up on those first few seasons because we kind of I think we jumped in around season 3, maybe.
Can't remember.
Yeah.
But the first couple few are great.
So some of this is kind of like Lifetime Achievement Award for me.
Yeah.
Like, but I totally agree. I think this season has absolutely rebounded from the previous 2. I think it's the feeling that I get is that for 4 and 5, they really wanted to shake things up and try to keep energizing like their own creative juices.
Yeah.
And with the knowledge that this was the last season, they were like, well, we can just go back to what we do, basically, to what we do best.
Right.
And
not have to worry about stretching it out another 3 years or whatever.
Exactly. Obviously, like the Laszlo, Baby Colin Robinson, that whole season. I mean, that was such a swing, and it was a miss, right? I've gone back and rewatched it, and it's not nearly as painful the second time through. But yeah, when that season was out, was live, whatever, when there was a new episode every week, it was a bummer. I was like, damn, they've fallen off. Yeah.
But they recovered.
But yeah. And then what I was going to say about the show is also it's kind of in line with what you were saying. Like for me, this show has entered like my comedy pantheon, basically. It now gets to live with Arrested Development, Seinfeld, Community, 30 Rock, Parks and Rec, The Office, like all those shows that like I will return to over and over and over again. I think this one's there.
And I commend them for knowing when to pull the plug and walk away.
Yeah.
Because you stretch it 3 or 4 more, you end up where The Office was, where like, I'll never watch those last couple seasons of The Office again, man. I don't care. It wasn't that great. It was okay. And I get it. Everything kind of, there's a shelf life for all of these sort of situational comedies. Is there a name for what these things are? Where they have like, the documentary crew or the...
So technically they are... The big tent genre that they fall under is single cam sitcoms versus like a multicam where there's cameras that are set that are literally like they don't move and they're all around like a soundstage.
Right.
This is single cam means that it's like it's one camera is essentially following at all time. And they kind of cheat it because they have the film. So in this version of it, like The Office, Parks and Rec, they're like single cam mockumentary style.
Mockumentary. Yeah. There you go. And this is a great one.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Okay, my number 9 is Slow Horses Season 4.
Ooh.
This is another one where this is a bit of a cumulative award for me. I did not start watching Slow Horses until this year. And I'm not a binger. I do not watch shows very fast. I like to savor them. I like to pace them out. and Laura and I watched the first 3 seasons of Slow Horses in, I think, 3 weeks. Maybe it was 4. I mean, I absolutely loved it. Season 4 is probably my least favorite season. But it's still one of the, I still wanted to continue watching after the end of every single episode. I was like, man, I can't believe we have to wait a week for the next one. We talked a lot about how the season actually probably is much better if you are able to binge it the way that I binged the first 3.
Right.
And I so much so that when season 5 comes around, I'm probably going to let a few episodes stack up before we even start. But man, really, really good show that Gary Oldman, the performance there, along with man, his name's going to slip my mind now, but River Cartwright, Jack Loudon. Jack Loudon, yes. 2 really, really, really great performances. The Gary Oldman one, again, fits right along in that Landman conversation where it's like, this dude has been waiting to play this role.
Yeah, if you it's weird, but if you have what I would call like a decent storyline, but you get that leading actor or actress to fill a role that's like it was written for them in the way that they have Billy Bob Thornton on Landman or Gary Oldman on Slow Horses, it can carry the show to another level.
Yeah. But yeah, I love hanging out in London, you know. I love just chopping it up with first desk, second desk.
How'd you like Hugo Weaving?
Well, I thought he was a pretty weak part of the season overall. I didn't
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I didn't like I didn't really love what they did with bringing that character in and having like a more overarching like big bad who's maybe a part of the CIA. Not sure.
Ex-CIA, maybe, I can't remember.
Yeah, we're not sure. But yeah, it's still. I thought season 4 was riveting enough and kept me engaged enough to still make my top 10, especially on the back of me discovering the show and crushing the first 3 seasons like nothing I ever have before.
There you go. My number 9 is Presumed Innocent on Apple TV Plus. Admittedly, I am a big Jake Gyllenhaal fan. I really like this dude. I think he picks great projects. I don't know anything about his personal life. Swifties don't come at me. I don't know what he's like as a dude. But as an actor,
I think he's a pretty interesting dude.
He has an incredible resume at this point. Like, I mean, really, really good movies. This is a great TV show. I Presumed Innocent was a reboot, right? Or a remake?
It's a novel that was then a Harrison Ford movie in the 90s. And then, so it's... Yes.
So I never read the book and I never saw the Harrison Ford version. So this was my first...
Totally.
Which I think really changes your judgment of this thing. I think if you've seen the other version or watched or read the book, it may change how good this is, maybe for the worse. Yeah. I don't know. But having no idea what was going on here, I loved this. Gyllenhaal is fantastic. Peter Sarsgaard, the dude who plays Tommy Molto, is also very, very, very good. Yeah, he's such a good weasel.
That's an awesome performance.
But really, the whole cast is great. Bill Camp was great. I can't remember what I know him from. A couple different things, I guess.
The night of, probably, but he's in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was really, really into this during its little run there.
Yep. And great summer thriller. Yeah. Summer, captured an audience. This was one that everybody seemed to be watching, which was really cool and fun.
Yeah, and it's sexy. Yep. It's got some sexiness going on. It's got the violence and the murder and the legal craziness in the courtroom and watching a trial unfold in a really exciting way. And yeah, just kind of brought a whole bunch of things together that push my buttons. So that was my number 9, Presumed Innocent.
Totally. Okay, 8. I got a big one here at 8. 8. Guys like you and me, Ross.
Wow, okay.
Sometimes we just got to dial up the penguin. We got to get into that Batman univoice. We got to work hard. We got to see it through. That's what we got to do. This show had no business being as good as it was for a DC comic book entry into an existing Batman universe. I think watching Dune Prophecy on the back of the Penguin made it even better for me because it's a shining example of and look, I might be wrong here. Maybe I have the steps out of order, but what it seems like is that Lauren LaFranc and Matt Reeves had a great idea for the Penguin. And they said, what if we build out this show? It'll be great for the expanded universe. But I feel like they had an awesome story in their minds ready to tell.
Right.
Whereas Dune feels very much like they were like, we need to expand this universe. What do we got?
Can we reverse engineer a TV series that further, profits from the existing franchise?
Yeah.
That's right. I don't think anybody can argue with that. And what makes it it's even more simple, I think, than you're putting it, because the Penguin, the title gives you your direction.
Yeah.
This is about the Penguin. It's the backstory of this character that everyone is already aware of in the new movies, right? Whereas Dune Prophecy, it's much more complicated. It's like, this is the origins of the sisterhood that eventually becomes the Bene Gesserit, and we have to find, our biggest problem with Dune Prophecy was, which character are we grabbing onto here? Who do we like? Who are we rooting for?
Yep.
And we never really got that answer.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Penguin, you start off rooting for the Penguin.
That's right.
Maybe not by the end, but at the beginning, that's certainly you're on board with the whole Oz Cobb thing. So yeah.
Carried by 2, but really 3. I mean, I thought Vic, Rennie Ray's. You have to pull his name for me.
The guy who played Vic.
Vic, yeah. All very good performances, but yeah, led by 2. I mean, honestly, star turns from, not that Colin Farrell needed it, but I think this cemented Kristen Milioti as an absolute force. I hope she gets more stuff, off of her turn as Sofia Gigante.
If they're able to make any more movies, which is seeming less and less likely, then yeah, I think she will.
And that's the craziest. That's the other crazy thing. This Matt Reeves seems to know what he's doing, and yet here we are hearing all this information about the Batman 2 production just being absolutely in disarray.
Getting pushed back a full year. A lot of rumors about why that is, why that isn't. Reeves is claiming publicly that it's simply that he hasn't finished the script.
That's what James Gunn said.
Other people are like, no, it really looks like Robert Pattinson got a call from Christopher Nolan, and he was like, sorry, guy, got to do the Odyssey. I'll see you on the flip side.
Yeah, that's a weird one, because there's no way that Warner Brothers Batman contract allows him out to do anything else. You know what I mean?
Right.
That really, now maybe behind the scenes, maybe Matt Reeves is doing him a favor. Hey, I'll say I didn't finish the script yet.
Or maybe he's literally having trouble with the story and finishing the script. I mean, it has been a notable absence of detail regarding who's the villain going to be? What is happening in the second one? What is the fucking story there?
If anybody has any more industry, experience and knowledge than Ross and I do, maybe you've been on sets or something, we'd love to hear from you, because you can call into Patreon. But it floors me that they start production, that the cameras are rolling on a $250 million movie and they don't have the script finished yet. That seems like number one. It seems like the first thing, the first priority that has to be dialed in and buttoned up.
You don't want to be working on the fly. That's insane. Renzi Feliz, by the way, is Victor Aguilar's actor.
This Penguin had some incredible performances, some really strong episodes, and I honestly think the show would have finished higher for me if we hadn't kind of had some of those story plotline issues with the last couple of episodes there that just kind of they kind of had to shoehorn a few things around, and you could kind of feel it at the end.
And now last thing on the Penguin, very curious to see if the Batman 2's 1-year delay to October of 2026 destroys the odds of the Penguin season 2. It feels like it would.
It feels like it would. Yeah, it does. Yep.
And that was a successful little series there for HBO. So that's a bummer in some ways.
And if you didn't watch The Penguin, that's obviously one that Ross and I have a podcast for every single episode, and over on Patreon for Hotline Calls. Great little gritty crime noir Gotham.
Batman fun times.
High stakes thriller Batman fun times.
With no Batman.
Yeah.
Hey, how many shows do you think we covered this year episodically?
5?
6.
6?
I was thinking 8 or 9. I guess
No,
math
they really
not my strong
stretch.
suit.
Yeah, they really stretch. Yeah,
But 6 total, and this was one of them, the Penguins. So if you want to watch that, check out our companion podcast for it as well. My number 8 was Masters of the Air.
Okay.
Which might shock people because I kind of shit on it a little bit when I was watching it, but like in hindsight, first of all, I'm a huge sucker for the Band of Brothers and the Pacific, although that's one I don't rewatch because I'm not that much of a masochist.
Yeah.
But I love this kind of thing, man. And it's, this was a different network. It was not an HBO deal. It was on Apple TV Plus. I believe it was still produced by Hanks and Spielberg, if I'm not mistaken, but they weren't involved in like the creation of it.
I think that's right.
It's a different directing crew, and Tim Van Patten was in there though. Timmy, who's a director we've dealt with a bunch of times,
that's
but the cast was just ridiculous. It was. What's the name of the dude? Austin Butler is kind of your main guy, but it's also got Barry Keoghan in there who, did he just break up with Sabrina Carpenter? I didn't even know they were dating.
Yeah.
He cheated with like a TikToker?
I don't know.
The kids know.
Going on
the kids
there.
know.
Yeah.
But mistake, Barry. Big fan of Barry. It takes you inside of basically, like everyone is aware that aircrafts, airplanes, big freighters, bombers, etc., had a lot to do with World War II. It takes you inside of those and kind of lets you see how they work while also giving you a connection to a bunch of really great characters. And it's not as devastating as, not anywhere near as devastating as Band of Brothers or The Pacific.
Which feels kind of almost par for the course for Apple, right? Like
it won't go as dark.
They won't go quite as dark, yeah. If I love planes, just like in general, do you think I would like Masters of the Air?
Yeah. And I honestly, I appreciate, look, everybody knows World War II was devastating. I don't need to feel that heaviness in every single World War II story, project, movie, TV show. There are more than enough of those if you want to go get that feeling. I liked the angle that Masters of the Air took, and, when it was all said and done, it got me through a week where I was sick, too.
Yeah.
I felt like ass. So it earned my number 8 spot, man. Masters of the Air on Apple TV+.
My number 7 is where I have What We Do in the Shadows Season 6.
Okay, cool.
What's your number 7?
The Bear Season 3. People hated on this a lot.
Yeah.
It took a lot of shit, man. My personal tastes line up a little bit more with the artsy-fartsy stuff in this case. I still loved it. There were things about it that you and I did, rightfully picked apart, I think. The John Cena cameo with the facts and all that was still, I'm like, what do we... It was a little over the top in terms of taking you out of it and being less, I guess less self-serious, which this show feels like it needs to be to really work. So it wasn't the best season. I mean, I would still put it probably right there with season 1, though. Season 2 stands alone as the best season of that show and one of the best seasons of TV in the last 5-10 years, probably. But The Bear season 3 was still fine by me, and it earned my 7th spot. We got season 4 coming in 2025, so we got another one of those to look forward to. I also, like Barrett has mentioned many times, appreciate that they bang these out.
Yep.
I'm not waiting 3-4 fucking years to get more Bear.
Huge, yeah.
Hit me with the shit, man.
Yeah, The Bear has the unfortunate issue, season 3 does, of having to stand against its previous 2 seasons, and as you mentioned, season 2 in particular. And so it's like with I kind of cheated on my Slow Horses placement because I watched all 4 essentially in succession and almost grade them as cumulative, but. Season 1 through 3, none of those are none of them are the best season of television I've ever watched. This is an entertaining 6-episode romp. With The Bear, it's like I'm teed up going in expecting the best television season of the year.
Goat
basically.
Level shit, yeah.
Right. I also would just the Bear is I'll have a little bit more to say about The Bear, but. I just didn't quite resonate with like the 2 big episodes of the season, which were Ice Chips and Napkins. I thought Ice Chips was a painful watch, but good. But Napkins, which is the other one that everybody talks about, it's the Tina episode basically. It didn't quite work for me.
That one hit hard for me.
Yeah.
Ice Chips not so much. I'm a man. It's harder. To identify with a lot of the themes there that are women based. But the Tina episode. Especially after I'd given it some time to breathe, that hit.
Yeah.
that hit for me.
The fact stuff, on the other hand, it still haunts me. Ross.
Well, love a good haunting.
My number 6. All right. This is going to be a shocker for you.
Hit me.
Only Murders in the Building season 4.
Okay, wow, yeah.
There was we got a call on Patreon a couple of months ago when this was like more like when these episodes were coming out. And I think the call was like, Barrett, you need to get in on season 4. I think you're really going to like it.
You're lagging behind.
You're lagging
Get it together.
behind.
They were right.
They were right. I think this is the best season of the show.
Wow.
I also need to fully acknowledge that as I get closer and closer to the age of 40, Steve Martin and Martin Short doing dad joke stuff together
They get funnier.
is funnier and funnier and funnier to me.
Dude, watching Christmas Vacation over the holidays is when it really sunk in for me. Like, oh my God, the dumb dad joke humor now fully aligns with my brain.
Yeah.
And works so much more. That's like the whole movie, Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
And it's a lot funnier to me now than it has ever been.
Yep. But you've got them doing their thing. Selena Gomez is there to be like the kind of like a wisecracking, sarcastic millennial who doesn't know, who has to teach them all the technology things. Ross, this is an episode that knows how to that figured out how to do its celebrity cameos as well. Which I thought they went a little too far with it in season 3. This season they had it more dialed in, and there is a scene, Ross, that has I'm gonna list the actors that they have in one room, like for a scene. They've got the 3 mains. They've got Selena Gomez, Martin Short, Steve Martin. They've got Molly Shannon. They've got Melissa McCarthy, Meryl Streep, Eva Longoria, Zach Galifianakis, and Eugene Levy, all in the same scene, interacting with each other.
Yeah, that feels like a sketch from the Grammys or from the Oscars.
But it worked this season. I thought the story was really good and fun. And they are pushing these out fast. And the fact that they, with a show called Only Murders in the Building, where they are sticking to that theme. So they have this conceit of like, you have to suspend disbelief that these murders continue happening in their building.
Right.
And they are making it work every season. They are making it, they are making the continuation feel, if not believable, at least like
possible
or welcomed.
Why does anyone still live in this building? Yeah.
So this is just the perfect mix for me of like it's a very entertaining and funny show that has a mystery at its core, that you're getting episodes right around that 30-minute range, so a little bit longer than like a true chaser, but easy enough to throw on when you want something in that kind of like middle ground. And the season 4 was my favorite yet.
And you think that the pulling of the stars that they were able to do with Only Murders, that's just Steve Martin, right?
And Martin Short. I mean, Martin Short is dating Meryl Streep.
No shit.
Yeah.
Martin Short is dating Meryl Streep?
Yes.
That is an odd couple in my brain.
I think it's all. I mean, honestly, I think it's the pull of all 3.
Selena Gomez too.
But definitely Martin Short and Steve Martin are
they're by and
comedy
large
legends,
Hollywood legends at this point.
Hollywood legends.
Extend beyond comedy into just general legendary. Yeah,
SNL 5-timers club, both of them. So they I think they're really able to pull from that world.
Oh yeah,
with Melissa McCarthy, Molly Shannon, those types, and then Paul Rudd is in this season again. He was in season 3 as well. It's pretty wild what they're able to do.
Yeah. Steve Martin, one of the creators, co-creator with John Hoffman. Also, he writes for it too. So that's that's really cool.
But people obviously want to come play in the universe.
Right. One I still have not seen a single episode of. I think I tried episode 1 one night and passed out.
Yeah.
I've got this on my list of stuff to watch because I feel like it's a light watch. Like it's not. This is what I need a little bit more of in my life. Less heavy stuff.
Yep.
Not everything needs to be Squid Game. Or you just end up depressed and miserable. I've done that for a lot of years. I'm trying to mix it up, baby. All right, that was your number 6. My number 6 might shock some people too, because it is a documentary.
Okay.
Wise Guy, David Chase in The Sopranos.
Oh, nice.
This is like it cheated.
Yeah.
It cheated. But if you loved The Sopranos like I do, where it's my number 1 favorite show of all time, rewatched it a stupid amount of hours have been dedicated of my life to watching The Sopranos, then you will love this documentary. It is pretty incredible. It is not that long. What is it, 2 episodes? They're each like an hour and a half, I want to say, if I remember correctly. The premise is pretty cool just because they've got David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, and he doesn't even really want to do the documentary. And once the guy gets into the questions, he realizes the documentary isn't even really about The Sopranos. It's mostly like it's more about David Chase.
Yeah.
And David Chase like kind of wants to leave. And that's like the starting point for this thing. So it starts off really interestingly, and then it just kind of it takes you through interviews with a bunch of the, main actors and actresses that were involved in it, and gives you a lot of backstory to where the inspiration for The Sopranos came from. The strong majority of which is David Chase's personal life experience. Gets into his relationship with his mom, which is obviously a huge piece of what the motor of The Sopranos up until the death of, oh my God, what's her last name? Marchand? The lady who plays Livia?
Yeah.
Have to look it up because I can't disrespect her.
Marchand, yeah.
Livia? Nancy Marchand. Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yep.
Anyway, wise guy David Chase in The Sopranos is on HBO. It also, the other piece of it that's really, really interesting that I would add into my sales pitch here is, if you ever wondered, if you were not like in Barrett and I's generation where you kind of got to see HBO become HBO, if you're younger in Gen Z or you're older and you missed this somehow, this gives you the story.
Yeah.
HBO was like this fucking backwoods softcore pornography and comedy stand-up channel that nobody cared about. And then they took this huge swing on The Sopranos and completely transformed the next 20 years of the network and became the go-to prestige television spot from the time The Sopranos started airing through 5 years ago. And now they're in the mix with like these other greats like Hulu and FX and Apple TV Plus and whatnot that have caught up to them.
Yep.
But HBO was the standalone god of TV from this show's starting, The Sopranos, until very recently. So this gives you some of the insight into how that came to be as well. They've got these former HBO executives that are part of the documentary. It's fascinating. I loved this. It was my number 6.
All right. Before we get to 5, I'll give you a quick recap of what I had on my list. So from 10 to 6, I had Landman, Slow Horses Season 4, The Penguin, What We Do in the Shadows Season 6, Only Murders in the Building Season 4, which leads me to my number 5, House of the Dragon.
Hot D.
Did
better this year than it did with Season 1 for you?
Yes, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills with Season 2.
Yeah.
I don't understand why this season is seemingly getting less respect than Season 1. I didn't see it on many lists. I barely even heard it talked about. I don't think it's going to it does not look like it's going to grab a bunch more awards the way the Season 1 did. And I know people were upset about the finale. I get that. And as Game of Thrones fans, as Westeros, players, we're very sensitive and touchy when it comes to our finales at this point, right? Like, trust me, I get it. And it was a weird finale. It ended on a sort of down note. But Season 2 was awesome.
Yeah,
Season 2 was so much better to me than Season 1. That I mean, like, I'm just really, really surprised that there hasn't been.
There's definitely a lack of love.
That there's been such a lack of love for Season 2. And I guess, like, I don't know who to blame, whether it's like the book readers that were in a tizzy about so many things this season, or George R.R. Martin coming in just like shitting on the whole thing right at the end of it. It's very strange to me, but I thought the season was awesome. I looked forward to every single episode. I looked forward to covering it. It had some huge moments. It had some of the dragon battles that we had been waiting for. It had some of the like, it moved the plot forward. It set us up for what should be an incredible Season 3. And it's grown for me. The stature of the season, I think, has grown for me over the last several months.
I think history will smile upon Season 2 a lot more than the current, what do you call it, zeitgeist is.
Yeah.
So that was your 5.
That was my 5. What's your 5?
Fargo Season 5. And this one kind of surprised me. And it in part because my wife sort of talked me into moving it up my list. She was like, "Do you not remember how much you loved this while it was going on?" And I was like, I guess I did. It was kind of a while ago. And as I went back and sort of reread the, just like a general plot breakdown and looked at the cast again, I was like, you know what? I did love this. I really loved this. This was really, really good. And I had in the same way that we talked about What We Do in the Shadows sort of seeming like it lost its fastball and then recovering. That's how I felt about season 5 of Fargo. Like there had been a season or two, that Chris Rock season. I think I made it 3 episodes into that, and then I was like, you know what? Yeah. I don't need this, and I bounced. Season 5 kept me locked in the whole time. Juno Temple deserves a lot of the credit here.
Yep.
She is awesome. She was Ted Lasso,
in Ted Lasso,
right? Was the only other thing I think I really knew her from. She kills it. She's fantastic. She is like the driving force behind this thing, but also John Hamm's inclusion was a great move. He's also in Landman.
He is.
But John Hamm is like a GOAT TV actor.
What a deal he has for Landman. He just gets a camera, follows him around, and he talks on the phone. That's
for
it.
45 seconds an episode. And he's just this badass oil executive. Yeah. The dude who plays like the the big bad sort of like
the mythological
dude in this thing is great. His name is Sam Spruill, and the character's called Ol Munch, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, season 5 was really, really good. It was a return to form for Fargo. I love Fargo as a show. I love the way they do the season-by-season stories. It's like if you've never seen Fargo, I would compare it to like the way American Horror Story operates, where it's like...
Yeah, it's an anthology.
Anthology. There you go.
Completely new story.
That's the word I can never remember. Anthology.
So this is one of those weird ones. This show started in 2023.
Did it technically start in 2023?
But ended in January of 2024. And believe it or not, this was my number 5 on my 2023 list.
No shit.
Yeah.
the season 5 was.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well. I wonder if I had it on mine. Did I just put it on 2 lists?
You did not.
Oh, good.
I think I had made it through far more of the season than you had at the time.
Okay, it started November 21st of 2023 and ended in 2024. January of 2024.
All right, my number 4 is English Teacher, the new comedy on FX from through Hulu.
Is this one you're finished with?
This is one I'm finished with.
Yeah.
Yep. This was, speaking of comedies. For me, this was the best new comedy that I have seen, maybe since What We Do in the Shadows. Like it did not need more than 1 or 2 episodes for me to be ready to live in this universe, in this world.
And this is Hulu FX.
This is Hulu FX. It's from creator Brian Jordan Alvarez, who's like a TikTok. He was TikTok famous. He just is a go-getter. He's out there creating stuff. And so he has done like web series before. He's done YouTube stuff. He's been in he's in the Megan movies.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So he's kind of a face that you might recognize from a variety of different things.
Oh, he's our age too.
And he's our age. And
born a month after me.
This is basically the pitch here, the elevator pitch here is R-rated Abbott Elementary. It centers on he and his best friend, who are both teachers at a high school in Austin, Texas. None of this was shot in Austin, Texas. There are some very faint references to Austin, but it means absolutely nothing to the show. They sort of try to play around with the fact that it's a blue city and a red state.
Oh yeah.
A couple of different times, but other than that, it really bears no meaning. It's got a love story, kind of baked in, which is how the season 1 kind of finishes. It just feels super fresh, super modern. It's really, really, really funny. And this is another one that I could not wait for these episodes to come out every week, and I cannot wait for the show to continue for many more seasons.
I don't know why my Hulu app didn't throw this one in my face more, but it's on. And I'm adding it. Just added it to my want to watch list.
Yeah, this is, and again, quick 25-minute episodes, and just really funny. There's coming of age stuff. The high school characters feel real. You know what I mean? There's Gen Z stuff mixed in with them, but it feels natural.
Which is very, very hard to do.
Yes, yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, if you have not checked this out, this is maybe more than anything on my list here, this is the one that I want to tell you to go watch because I want it to be able to continue.
To have great success.
Yeah.
Great success. My number 4 is the complete and total opposite of yours.
Okay.
Baby Reindeer.
Yeah.
Baby Reindeer on Netflix. This was one of those kind of viral shows, man, that nobody saw coming, and the next thing you know, it's number 1 on Netflix, and a lot of the people you know are talking about it at dinner parties and shit.
Yep.
It was a water cooler show, and it was very, very dark, very, very heavy randomly. Like the first couple episodes are kind of light, and then all of a sudden, I can't remember if it's episode 3 or 4, you're just like, Jesus Christ, why is this one 30 minutes longer? And like one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. I tend to vibe with the darkness, so that worked for me. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's just extremely well done. It has like very British vibes to it that I am not exposed to that often. Like, you know how British people just have a different like sense of humor. It's dry and strange compared to a lot of American humor. And there is a lot of humor tied into this show, which is about an extremely dark subject matter in the form of stalking and like there's some sexual assault and abuse stuff as well. Like it gets really, really heavy, but it was incredibly well done. I know it's been nominated for a bunch of stuff as a result.
Yeah, won some stuff as well, I believe.
It's on Netflix. Netflix stuff does not typically make my top 5. It's not they don't go after the vein that you and I live in, like the prestige TV stuff. Right. They don't really go after that as often. As we talked about on I think it was Patreon last week maybe.
I think so.
Netflix is like they've kind of said like, screw you guys, you elitist pricks, we'll be the everybody's channel, right? Where there's like everybody can find something for them on Netflix.
Yeah.
But this was probably like their biggest success of the year, I want to say, from a critical standpoint.
Well, so Ripley, which we mentioned,
Ripley was also on Netflix.
Also Netflix, but this definitely was like I think their biggest and buzziest show of the year, and was coupled with critical acclaim as well.
And it was worthy of all that. Making my top 5 for that reason. So yeah, Baby Reindeer is my number 4.
Probably will not be watching Baby Reindeer, but I respect that it's out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's. I don't think it's a Barrett show.
Here's a Barrett show at number 3. Probably the most Barrett show on this list. It's Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Starring Donald Glover and Maya Erskine. What a fabulous show this was, just from every single angle, but maybe most importantly, just from the absolutely gorgeous real estate porn, whether we're in the coolest New York brownstone I've ever seen, or hanging out in a ski chalet in like the Swiss Alps.
Oh, the Barrett vibes are strong.
And in just a picture perfect house on Lake Como, where maybe some bombs are going to go off. Who knows? Who's to say? The way that Donald Glover, like this was the right type of IP, harnessing essentially. Amazon had the rights to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They brought in a brilliant genius creator in Donald Glover, and they said, "What can you do with this?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to package it up as as Mr. and Mrs. Smith, as two people who are working as assassins, and I'm going to make it about relationships. I'm going to make it about marriage. I'm going to make it about what being with a partner looks like." And he just did it with absolute just finesse. The show was so good. So a lot of people loved the Kristen Bell and Adam Brody got a lot of buzz for their chemistry on Nobody Wants This on Netflix.
Right.
But the best chemistry of the year, I promise you, is Donald Glover and Maya Erskine in this show.
Wow.
I mean, it is so like. You just watching them, you're like, these two people have to have known each other. They have to have dated. Like it's so real. The thing about the Nobody Wants This is it's got a fantasy element to it. It's a little too cute. It's a little
over
too
the
perfect.
top.
Right. This is real. This is real chemistry. These two people, they love each other so much. They want to fuck, but they also like sort of hate each other sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that they just capture that energy. There's also amazing set pieces. There's the spy stuff. There's the assassin stuff. I could have very easily talked myself into putting the show at 2 or 1. It landed at 3, and I think that's the right spot for it. But one of my favorite shows of the year. And just absolutely like Like you said, the Barrett vibes were off the charts.
Do you remember why I had an aversion to this? Why I didn't want to watch it?
I don't.
So when I saw Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie starring Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie,
Yeah.
I absolutely hated it.
Okay.
But we were in high school.
Yeah.
Who knows if my taste might have been absolutely terrible at that point in my life. It probably was, if I had to guess. Something about that movie and like, I don't know.
You were just, you were Team Jen. That's all there is to it.
That element was mixed in, Barrett. Like I was like, these fuckers, they cheating and the, breaking up a marriage and whatnot.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I hated it. And for some reason, I never wanted to give Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon a chance. As a result, having heard you praise it all year and having seen Donald Glover, otherwise known as Childish Gambino, somehow end up my number one most listened to artist on my Spotify Wrapped of 2024, which shocked me too. But I loved his new album.
I think Lexi would like this show too. This is a really good couple show. Because it's like,
which is huge. If you're married, you need these.
Yeah,
badly.
Yeah. It's got action. It's got the type of action that I think is like pretty palatable for everybody, but like definitely like kind of scratches that itch from a kind of thrill standpoint. And then it's got just enough of like, it's not too bleak, it's not too brutal on the relationship front, but it definitely has the kind of. It talks about and plays with the ups and downs, and in a really like kind of just in a meaningful way,
in an
impactful way,
real shit.
Yeah,
but not soul crushing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Before I give you my number 3, we've got no sponsors today, and you've probably noticed we haven't had that many sponsors as of late. We're working on trying to get more for 2025, so we aren't working for free. But in the meantime, we would greatly appreciate if everyone who is able would go and support our show by subscribing on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles in exchange for exclusive ad-free episodes of our show. If you've listened to our show throughout the year, you're probably aware of a lot of the content that exists on Patreon. But if not, Barrett and I did a companion podcast for every single episode of The Sopranos that is friendly to first-timers and rewatchers. This is the only place you can find it is on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. We did it during the pandemic. It was Barrett's first time watching The Sopranos. It was like my 7th or 8th. But we did the podcast in a way that anybody who is watching, whether it's your first time or a rewatch, it is still very enjoyable for you. So that's where our entire Sopranos companion podcast lives. It's where all of our bonus ad-free hotline call-driven episodes for House of the Dragon Season 2 and 1, for The White Lotus Season 2, for Succession's final season, for all these shows we've covered, including this year's like Shogun and whatnot. It's where they live. And a lot of those episodes, the ones that are focused on specific TV shows, they're driven by hotline calls from our listeners. So if you listen to our ad-based show publicly like this one, and you're like, well, they didn't touch on this, or they were dead wrong about this, Patreon is the place we correct those things, expand upon them, and get explanations from our listeners as well as address theories from all of them. We have a great time on Patreon every week, and it really does help us out a lot if you go and subscribe and support our show in exchange for more. It's just $5 a month to subscribe for the audio of each episode. And actually, you can go sign up now, and there's a 7-day free trial. So if you give it a shot for a week and you're like, this isn't for me, I get enough OCC, no harm, no foul, you can unsubscribe and you won't have spent a dime. If you like it, you can stick around and continue to support OCC and get even more OCC in exchange, ad-free.
Many people, I've heard it's a top 3 New Year's resolution of 2025 to finally watch The Sopranos. If it's a top 3 resolution, don't
in the world,
don't look it up. It's true. If that's you, get
on
there.
Patreon.
Get in there, and pretty incredible companion podcast. And if I may add, this is going to be a great 2025.
Oh yeah.
Doing this list, there was a lot of stuff that I loved, but I think 2025 is going to be a much better TV year. Right off the bat, we're getting Severance and White Lotus season 3, both of which will get coverage on Patreon. Probably rolling right into something like The Last of Us, Night of the Seven Kingdoms later this year. That's our bread and butter. Don't miss that. But get on board early. Just come hang. If you like a more kind of meandering conversation, touching on several topics an episode, this is the spot for you. $5 a month, or sign up yearly. Just you get some type of discount. Pay it once, never think about it again.
It's at least 10%. I want to say maybe more. But yeah, if you do the annual subscription, you get a big discount there. And if you want video of every episode, if you watch our show on YouTube, if this is where you take in Oysters, Clams, and Cockles every week, You can subscribe to the Mollusk Militia on Patreon, which gives you access to the hotline numbers so you can actually be featured on the show. And in addition to that, you get the full video of every episode. So patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Get in there, support our show. We need it. We want it. And you'll enjoy it. My number 2. That was your number 2, right? My number 3.
3. We're on your
My number
3.
3 is The Rings of Power Season 2. And I don't care if you hated it. If you hated it, you're wrong. You're simply wrong. I could not drag Barrett into this journey with me, The Rings of Power. We had so many DMs from people like, will you all please cover The Rings of Power Season 2? I'm like, I would, but I have a Rings of Power hating co-host in Barrett here. So like...
y'all don't want to hear me talk about that, I promise.
No, and that's fair. But like Season 1 was just okay. And this is a $1 billion show for Amazon that they spent $500 million on just the rights to make it. And Season 1 was a big letdown from that angle. All right, I get that. And I know a lot of people probably didn't show back up for Season 2, but that was a mistake because this righted the ship. This was as good to me as the original trilogy. That's the level that this show operated on. Now,
is that the prevailing sentiment among the heads out there, among the Middle-earth heads?
I mean,
what do y'all call yourselves?
You know how it is in 2024, man. It's everything is polarizing. Like one of our best friends, who is a massive LOTR fan, hated this because he thought it was woke. Yeah, which at no point did those vibes disturb me in any way, shape, or form. But from like the action and the battle scenes and the performances from the cast and the production is insane because again they've spent more. I think it's the most expensive TV show ever made, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and you can feel it in every episode. But this was a huge step up from Season 1 of The Rings of Power, and got me fully locked in. I cannot wait. I think they have a plan. We have some insider in the Clam fam who's fed me information here and there. I think their plan is 5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So there's going to be years more of this to come. If you didn't get on, if you liked it, again, the prerequisite is that you need to like The Lord of the Rings. Right. Which Barrett was like, So if you don't love that, this probably maybe not for you. If you're a big fantasy person, though, this maybe is for you. And in that case, what the fuck? Why haven't you watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy? But this was for me. It worked very, very well, and I was super enthralled. Could not wait to see the next one every single week, and loved it. So that was my number 3.
The thing about it is that there's rings, and somebody has to be the lord of them. Yeah,
and then there's one ring to rule them all, and then in the darkness bind them. But yeah, Rings of Power Season 2 was my number 3.
Okay. My number 2 is there's a lot of comedy on my list this year, and
everybody needs to laugh.
And no change at number 2, which is Hacks Season 3.
Oh yeah, this made a lot of lists as well, and I have not watched it yet.
This was again for me. This is the best. This is the best comedy on TV right now, and it fits into the mold that we kind of discovered over the last 15 years of comedy that is doing so much more than comedy. Yeah. So honestly, this show has more in common almost with something like Atlanta or Barry or Fleabag or The Bear.
Fleabag is a great comedy.
It's funnier than all of those shows. It is there is comedy at its core, but it is also very dramatic with a really, really, at some points heavy kind of like main storyline. About this Deborah Vance comedian played by Jean Smart in what is just an all-time goated performance, and then her kind of like young writer protege, who's the actress is Hannah Einbinder, I believe, and I'm coming back to that word that I just used, chemistry. Like the way that they are able to play off of each other is unbelievable. Like it's so good and so funny. This is one of those ones where you're like, she should be a real comedian. Right? Like you want this world to be real. It's got a lot of heart, but it's got a lot of but there's some vicious elements to it as well. This was what I loved about Season 3, and more specifically the end of Season 3, is they are somehow finding a way to move plot forward. They do not continue to like reset the deck every single season. And they are finding new ground to play with. And at the end of every single season, I'm like, ooh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like they're leaving their story out on the floor. You know, like they are kind of, they find these endpoints at the ends of ends of the seasons, which feel, you know, complete for the chapter that they want to tell. And then they find a new chapter and you're like, fuck, that's so good. That's going to be so good. So it
That's all good writing right there. Yeah.
Yes. Just continues to operate at an extremely high level. This show has not slowed down. There has not been a bad season yet. I thought season 3 was as good, if not better, than the first two, and it sets up for what should be an awesome plot device for season 4. And I just can't say enough about Hannah Einbinder and Gene Smart. I mean,
yeah, this is another
so
example
funny.
of a show where, like, you know, I don't want to say Gene Smart makes the show, because the writing does.
It wouldn't work without her. It would not work without her.
She is the machine that
Yes.
gets this all to hum.
Yeah.
I would also note my analogy for writing in TV is sort of like offensive linemen in the NFL. Like, no casuals give credit to the offensive lineman. You have
Right.
to really know football and watch it pretty heavily before you're like in the zone of respecting the offensive line. It's like, if you don't have an offensive line, you don't have shit.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. If the offensive line sucks, your team sucks. The Texans have seen this all too well this season. But that's how it works with writing in television. Like, you cannot have a good show without good writing. It cannot be done.
Right.
Nobody can elevate bad writing into a place of watchability. It just is not a thing. So,
Except for Billy Bob Thornton.
but this is another, except for Billy Bob. That's the exception to the rule. But this is a show where you've got all of that going. I've seen the first 2 seasons, so I can speak to it a little bit. And Barrett is the one who got me to watch it, and it's. I would not say it's really up my alley. Even I would say it's sort of like outside of my box of stuff that I really normally turn to. But it was very, very good, very, very funny. It's almost like, I don't want to compare it to Ted Lasso, but it's got a similar thing where it's like, it's real life shit, and you can identify with these, like, with this aging comic and this young protege situation. It gives you 2 polar opposite ends of the spectrum career-wise. One is just getting started, one is literally on the way out. And then, like, the connection between the two, and with all the real life stuff and the comedy mixed in. So yeah, Hacks is worthy of a top 3 spot. Congratulations, Hacks.
What's your number 2?
House of the Dragon season 2.
Yeah.
I'm like you already said, I don't really know, man. I'm not too worried about why people don't give it as much praise as it probably deserves. I think it's easy to hate on the world of Game of Thrones when you consider the way the original series ended, when you consider the way George R. R. Martin operates publicly.
Yeah.
I get it. I get where the negativity comes from. I thought season 1 was really good. I did not think it was great. I've compared it to the season 5 or 6 of Game of Thrones when they started to lose the fastball a little bit, but it was still better than anything else on TV. I don't know that House of the Dragon season 2 reached quite to that level, but it was very, very well done. From like a production value, cast, and storytelling standpoint, this was head and shoulders above season 1. And I'm obviously, this is my shit, man. This is my bag, baby. So I if they crush it, I will give them credit as such.
We've said so much about this show already, and we talked about this a lot as well when we were covering it. But like, no other show is doing what this show is doing from like a production standpoint.
No,
either.
it's insane.
It's insane.
And that's why they give you the House That Dragons Built little single episode documentary about how they made each episode. And if you don't watch those, you really should, because it gives you even more appreciation for like how, like Barrett pointed out at one point during this season, with the rat catchers hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
The amount of time, energy, effort, and money that went into a 20-second, it's probably more like 10-second shot.
A 10-second shot,
is mind-boggling, and really lets you appreciate like the quality of this creation, right? Now, storytelling and how things proceed through season 3, 4, etc., it's going to be challenging. I think they're going to have a really hard time, especially considering how much Gurm is bitching from his blog. But I still have faith in Ryan Condal. I think this season was proof in the pudding that he didn't need Sapochnik to have a bunch of success the way he had Miguel Sapochnik in season 1. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with season 3. I think season 2 deserved a top 3 spot, and it gets my number 2.
Great.
What is your number 1 TV show of 2024?
Ross, it sounds like we have the same number 1.
Yabushige Ho!
Should come as no surprise. It's Shogun.
Shogun, dude. It was always going to be Shogun.
It was always going to be Shogun. It was never really close.
Nobody beat it.
Nobody beat it. This is what you're looking for in a number one TV show.
Oh, yeah. It's got it all.
And honestly, thank God we had Shogun. Because without Shogun, this would have been a rough TV year.
Not great.
Don't get me wrong. We just exalted 15 different shows here between the two of us, all of which were great times. They were all great times. And some of them elevated to a level of greatness. But this was a number one television show. So if you didn't have this, this was historic. Yeah, this is the Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry, right? Like,
right.
These players are all good. There's some all-stars, but this team, the year wouldn't have worked without Shogun. Just had everything, man.
It came out of nowhere. We didn't know what to expect. We almost didn't cover it. This is another one we covered episodically, by the way. If you haven't watched it or you're going to do a rewatch, we've got a companion podcast for it.
The writing was so good that it even was able to overcome an episode, a late episode, maybe episode 7 or something, where they just drop a character in that you're supposed to care about, and he's never appeared on the show before one single time. It was able to overcome a big error like that.
That's an inside joke for those of you who watched with us. Yeah.
So good. Everything from. I'm almost at a loss for words for how much fun and good this was. The show was 75% in Japanese.
And it subverted expectations in a crazy way.
And at multiple points, yes.
Pretty much throughout. It just refused to do what you expected it to do.
That's exactly right. That's a great place to just kind of start a little bit of more specific praise for what we thought Crimson Sky was going to be.
Yeah.
And then it's the Mariko Gambit. And then this big battle that you're expecting towards the end, and then the way that they subvert those expectations and deliver you something that's even better that you didn't even know you wanted.
Right.
You know what I mean? Unbelievable finale, unbelievable scenes with some characters, Toranaga and Yabushige. The Anna Sawai Mariko performance.
Unbelievable. She got nominated for a bunch of stuff,
yeah,
too.
and has won some stuff already.
Rightfully so. Cosmo Jarvis was awesome, though.
Cosmo Jarvis is Blackthorn, which, I mean, talk about an unexpected performance. That's an unhinged performance.
And it takes you a couple episodes before you're like, all right, I'm starting to understand what Whitey is doing here. You know what I mean? It's like, but it works. In the end, it really works by the end. Like, it's perfect by the end.
Yeah.
And, of course, Hiroyuki Sanada as Toranaga is just next level shit.
Yeah.
Next level shit.
This, as Stefan would say, this show had everything. And it really did. I mean, incredible production design, awesome acting. It took you to a world, right? It was a period piece, so it plopped you down in feudal Japan, and you felt like you were there. Like it immersed you. It even had canon practice, Ross. Who can forget?
Who could forget canon practice? One of my favorite parts of the show, man. Yeah, look, this thing was so good that this was it. It was supposed to be one season, and as Barrett pointed out during our coverage of season 1, they really benefited from thinking this was it. The writing did not involve setting up anything for season 2. They cashed all their chips, they pushed them all into the middle of the table right here for this one season, which will make it interesting to see. Because they got renewed for 2 more seasons, how that is going to work, because they did not have a story for another season, which they now need to make 2 of. They eliminated main characters that really were the stars of season 1 in some ways. They will not have them for season 2 or 3. So they've got a lot to work around. I'm going to be fascinated to see what they pull off with season 2. But it's like when you watch something really great, what I always say is like, the showrunners earned my trust.
Right. Yep.
Whatever the hell they plan to do, I'm on board.
Yep.
And I will give them a shot no matter what. And I'm very stoked because the Shogun was fantastic. If you have not watched this, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
I think TV especially, they kind of earn it in a way that sometimes I feel like movies don't. I'm very eye-rolly at the fact that we're getting a Barbie 2. Yeah. Like I loved Barbie. Really, I've seen it multiple times. I thought it was so good. It's like, no, come on. Do we
leave it alone?
Leave it alone. But with something like Shogun, it's like, No, like
if you want to go for it, fine.
Y'all did it. If you've got more story to tell, I get it. Let's see it. Let's take a crack. I don't,
Yeah, especially when it's something that's so out of like you just totally unexpected.
I want to go back to this world. Like that's why I'm excited. That's why I'm so excited about it. I want to see. I want to hear from Blackthorn again. I want to see Toranaga, continue his run at the Shogun title.
Toranaga. Oh. Yeah, me too. That was fantastic. Shogun, #1 show of the year for Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. And there was never any doubt.
Yeah.
I could have told you before we came in here that was going to be both of our #1. It was going to be really tough to wrestle that away. The honorable mentions I want to throw out really quickly because there's some things that did not make my list that may have surprised people.
Okay.
The Penguin on HBO.
Yeah.
When I look back at this show, there just wasn't the kind of depth in the storytelling, really, that I need to elevate it into a top 10 slot. It's not really a knock. I don't think it was supposed to be that kind of show.
Right.
The Penguin did what it was supposed to do, and it did it really well. And we were both kind of surprised by how well it ended up. It was like, shit, man. I think Colin Farrell, like you mentioned, and what's her name?
Kristen Milioti.
They really made this thing happen. Without their performances, you're not getting this kind of love. It would not have been anywhere near as good. And that's no disrespect to the writing or whatever. I'm just saying, like, their performances made this show. But yeah, didn't kind of have the depth that I needed. And in the end, honorable mention, it's probably somewhere in the 11-12 slot for me. But yeah, not in my top 10. Fallout, which Barrett absolutely hated and will not make his honorable mentions.
It will not, but I also will fully acknowledge that I am in the clear minority here. The show is on all sorts of lists.
My wife, Lexi, hated it too.
Okay.
She's right there with you.
It continues to get talked about as one of the best TV shows of the year and like a real triumph as far as the continued success in video game adaptations.
Yeah.
I thought it was garbage, but a lot of people really liked it.
I loved it, except the finale. I thought the finale was dog shit, and that's okay. That's okay. It's hard to do finales. I'll still give this a shot when season 2 comes out, but Fallout was awesome to me. I was wildly entertained. I was very locked in, and one of my best friends and my wife both fucking hated it, so I don't know what that says, but Dark Matter, another honorable mention.
Okay.
I believe it was Apple TV Plus, starring Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly. Look, it got a lot of weird and wonky parts that I was just like, this is schlock. But overall, good enough. Good show. Interesting show, fun show, weird sci-fi deal that I didn't know anything about. I'm throwing Squid Game Season 2 in here.
Yeah.
I'm not deep enough to know, but my God, they've found a way. I loved Season 1. I thought it was, it definitely made my top 10.
Is probably pretty good to know, though.
They're on the track.
Yeah.
They're on the path. For this to have potentially knocked something out of my top 10. They're doing the thing that you have to be able to do. Because again, Squid Game was a show that I don't think was set up to be multiple seasons. They were like, we got to figure out a way.
Yep.
Like, what is the story in season 2? And I think they have successfully done that in a way that also satisfies people who just loved season 1. Silo season 2 also on my honorable mentions. We're not done with it, obviously. That is going to be what we are covering next. I still think Silo Season 2 has elevated the show from where Season 1 was. And I think Barrett might disagree with me there. But I love Steve Zahn. I like what his crazy fucking bearded character is doing. I don't love that we've siloed off what makes Silo great.
Yeah.
In, what's her name?
Rebecca Ferguson. Juliet Lives.
Yeah, they're doing the Rebecca Ferguson thing. They're doing what they did to Damon in House of the Dragon Season 2. And it's kind of brutal in that way, but I think they've done a better job with it than they did with Damon and Harrenhal. Anyway, that's also on my honorable mentions, Silo Season 2, and then finally Landman on Paramount Plus, because you gotta have it. You just gotta have it.
Yeah, I'll throw out some. I had as two shows that were on your list. I had as my 11 and 12, and that was Presumed Innocent at 11 and The Bear Season 3 at 12. Presumed Innocent was great. I almost think that, like, because it was like a popcorn summer blockbuster almost.
It's like hard to take seriously.
That I don't know, for some reason I devalued it.
No, I hear you. I had to battle against that and putting it on mine.
3 Body Problem. I'll shout that out.
I put it in my just okay section. 3 Body Problem.
It was interesting. I almost feel like I got to take myself out of evaluating the show as a book reader.
Yeah.
I'm See, this is how book readers are supposed to do it. You're too close to the property. You can't judge it as a TV show on its own TV show merits.
You cannot.
Right?
You cannot.
The Sympathizer on HBO was another one that was like really interesting and had all the makings of like this like very prestige-y, well thought show that I made it all the way through. I had a lot of time for it. And yet somehow like just I didn't know what it. And Laura, I talked about this when we finished it. And this is it's apparently a great book, by the way, The Sympathizer.
The Sympathizer.
I didn't know what it wanted to say.
What was the point? What was the point?
I couldn't, and I don't need everything to be on the nose for me. In fact, I don't like it when things are too on the nose, but I just didn't understand really like the main theme. I think it was trying to play with like identity, but it, and what it means to be.
I think what we said.
Somebody in a part of things, but like, yeah, I couldn't.
I think what we said when we finished it was like, maybe this wasn't made for us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But The Sympathizer was on my disappointments list.
Yeah.
Because it had all the elements, like you said, but it just didn't quite get there for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last show that I'll mention here is one that was also absent from both of our lists, and I'm so mad because it had so much potential. True Detective Night Country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jodie Foster. I still can't believe she caught a nomination for Best Actress.
A win, right? I'm pretty sure she
won.
I think she won.
I think you're right. I think she did win. Which is fine, whatever.
Yeah,
that feels like a legacy award. That was on Just Okay for me, my Just Okay list. My Just Okay list was Three Body Problem, True Detective Night Country, and The Boys Season 4.
Okay.
The Boys Season 4 was just fucking more of what The Boys has already done 3 seasons of, so I was just kind of like, let's fucking wrap this up, fellas, which they are doing apparently with Season 5. That'll be the last one.
The thing about True Detective, and we talked about this when we were covering the show, like, I'll be back.
Yeah,
I'm definitely going to watch the next one,
Yeah. Didn't they give it to the same showrunner, too? Which I
think they did,
Which is fucking mind-boggling to me, but fine, whatever, fine, I'll still be back. My disappointments, number 1, The Acolyte. What the hell was that? Number 2, you might not like this one, but Slow Horses Season 4.
Yeah.
And it's because I didn't have the benefit of what Barrett did, where he watched all 4 seasons this year and binged them. Well, I guess you didn't get to binge all of Season 4, I don't think. But
I did not get to binge any of Season 4,
the point
which
is,
I thought was,
It was disappointing because the first 3 seasons are so good, and I agree this is a great show and Gary Oldman's vehicle.
Yep.
But I thought Season 4 was a big step back, and from a storytelling perspective, was just sort of a nothing burger. I was like, what the fuck? What was the point of this?
In comparison to the first 3 seasons, it definitely was a disappointment. I do agree.
And then Dune Prophecy also on disappointments. Look, this is a show that should have had everything working for it, and in the end, we were disappointed. We were just kind of like, what the fuck? What are we? It just felt like half a season of TV. That's what it felt like to me, and it was only 6 episodes, so that tracks. But at the same time, like, come on, if you're gonna do a Dune show, do it. Don't half it. Things I want to watch: Industry, Ripley's, Say Nothing, English Teacher, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Hacks Season 3. Those are all on my list. And yeah. Anything else you want to touch on? Throw out? Give props to?
I mean, we saving movies, or do you want to talk a little bit movies?
I think we have to save them for the Patreon.
Okay.
The Patreon.
All right.
Because otherwise, we could do another hour.
Well, and we will have for the Patreon, we will have seen Nosferatu. Which I got a feeling it's going to be on my top 1 through 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like it's headed in that direction.
Where's Challenger's going to be?
Also high.
Do you think Juror number 2 will make mine? It's aged well on me, Barrett.
I ended up on some Reddit threads about Juror number 2. I won't lie. I think I need to watch it now.
It aged well.
It's sitting with you. It's living in your
head.
Yes,
it is. It's been doing the thing, man, where like I finished it and I was like, son of a bitch. And then 4 days have passed now and I'm like, you know what? I like Juror number 2. You said, can't wait for Juror number 3.
I feel sort of the same about Challengers. Look, y'all know if it's vibes, it's for me.
Those were vibes, dude.
And they were vibes, and
strong vibes.
They also live on in my head. The Challengers vibes. I can't shake the images of 2 sweaty boys battling it out on the tennis court.
Or sharing a churro
to some hardcore Trent Reznor techno house.
Hell yeah, dude.
While Zendaya sits center court.
Fucking camera in the tennis ball. Who's doing that?
Nobody's doing that.
Who's fucking doing that? Huh?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk movies more on Patreon. We appreciate y'all so much for being here. Thank you for riding with us all of 2024, those of you who did. And again, we please ask that you would go support our show by subscribing on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. It's free for 7 days. Get in there, check it out, enjoy the massive backlog of content that we have, hundreds of episodes of OCC that you have never heard if you've never been on Patreon. That is the place that keeps this show alive. When we go through these stretches where we don't have a lot of sponsors like we have this past few months, the good people on Patreon in the Clam Fam and the Mollusk Militia are what keep this podcast going. So if you want to make sure you're a part of that crew for the next year, get on there, patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Follow Mr. Dudley at Barrett Dudley on Instagram and Twitter to keep up with him and his other content. You can follow me at WR Bolen. Our show is Oysters, Clams, Cockles. You search it on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You find it. You follow it. Have a good time with it. We are available on all the podcast platforms as well as in full video on youtube.com/oysters, clams, and cockles. Get on there, subscribe. If you're watching right now, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us a comment as well. We'll see y'all on Patreon later this week, and have yourselves a great new year, a happy one. That's what they say. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2025. Peace.